radio fans. We are now back in the studio. Stand by for your station announcement. And away we go!
Now, I know you'd love to just sit there and keep being not slim, but we got to work a little today, okay?
Broadcasting channels of the entire world will be cleared. In every continent, in every land, in all the four corners of the earth, the whole world over. Men and women and children, of every age and race, and nationality, station and color. Men of every language ready now to listen to the same voice.
So, is this on?
Finally, a way to combine my love of helping people with my love of hurting people.
So sit back, pop open a cold bottle of Brazilian mineral water, enjoy some poached salmon with capers, and adjust the satellite, because we have a great show.
And there was much rejoicing.
Unleash the fury.
Unleash the fury!
Ladies and gentlemen of the universe, the next voice you hear.
Erik Nagel.
All right, we're here.
We are?
Yes. I think my headphones are working.
Your headphones aren't working?
No, and you know, all the time I thought Oak just didn't know how to adjust the levels.
Yeah.
And it actually happens that way. I'm sitting here, as soon as I start talking, the volume just dropped right out of the headphone.
Okay. It's like the stereo in your car. You know when it gets louder as you accelerate and gets lower as you
Maybe
slow
that's
down?
what it does. It's
new.
pretty shitty for radio, but whatever. My name is Erik Nagel. It's Erik Nagel here on Sirius XM, Sirius 206 XM 103. But if you're listening to this right now, you already heard it.
There you go.
And if it's after the fact, it's after the fact, and you're hearing it on Sirius XM On Demand.
That's right, if you can find it.
And I said that's me, Erik Nagel. E-Rock Radio on Twitter and Instagram if you want to follow along. And joining me is, well, you weren't here last week.
I was not last week.
You had a life to live.
I did.
But you're back here. Matt OG, Geek Stuff OG on Twitter.
And Instagram as well. Yes, I am here.
And we've got a lot to talk about today.
We always have a lot to talk about.
And even more so than what I originally had planned, because something happened about 4 hours ago that took up a lot of my time.
Okay.
It's another day that'll go down in history.
And it's the day that...
It's the day of.
The day of, sorry.
The Fappening 2.
Oh, Jesus.
Thought it was done.
No.
And turns out it wasn't.
Well, we knew when the Fappening 1 happened.
Right.
Are we really calling it the Fappening?
That's how they say it. They call it the Fappening.
All right. Well, when that happened the first time, I guess we knew that there was more content that was yet to be released, that guy or that group of people had more than what was released or leaked or whatever you want to call it the first time. So I guess Wave 2 happened today.
Whoever it was, and the Fappening is just what Reddit called it.
Right.
What actually was happening was on another website, which I'm not going to promote, just for fear of my safety.
Sure.
That there was somebody who was leaking these photos that they managed to hack the cloud service for phones and get all these celebrity photos. And we're putting them out through this one site, and then it got distributed to many other sites. And the phrase was coined by people on Reddit. And the guy or guys who originally were putting these out went on the lam for a bit because the FBI were involved and what have you.
There was lawsuits. Everybody was clearly upset.
Right, and rightfully so.
Sure.
And so all that happened. And then the guy who created the Fappening on Reddit got outed by people. They had photos of him where he worked, his real name, all this stuff. And he publicly goes out and says, this is an invasion of privacy. It's like, asshole, you just did the same thing to these celebrities, not to the extent of the person or people who took the photos, but you're redistributing it, and you became the source. Like TMZ and Daily News and all these papers and everything were crediting that site for doing this.
Well, people seem to be okay with invasion of privacy until it's their privacy. When it's someone else's privacy, oh, well, it's someone else's privacy.
Now, look, if you're a guy and you have a heartbeat, if a girl comes out with nude photos,
of course,
Playboy or, something official, scenes in a movie, you're like, oh my God, I need to see this. Everybody needs to see this. Then there's the second tier where maybe they're at the beach.
Right.
Or maybe they're somewhere where a girl bent over to pick up her kid, and there's a down blouse shot or something like that, and all the paparazzi get it. It shows up on like
everywhere. Yeah,
everywhere, like on TMZ, Tyler Durden, all those sites and whatever. And Perez Hilton was a big problem for this first round of what they deemed the Fappening, for putting this out there, being the piece of shit that he is. So that's the second tier, is the paparazzi style shot. People still want to see it. It's up there. It's an invasion of privacy, but it's public, so you can't really do too much about it. This tier is a whole new ball game where you're invading people's privacy, and if you're dumb enough to have the cloud activated on your phone, it's your own damn fault.
Yes, but let's not victim blame on this one.
I'm not victim blaming. I'm saying everybody as a whole. That cloud service, people just think, oh, I can just store my stuff up there and I can pull it down through all my devices like it's meant to be.
Sure.
But don't think of the fact that I shouldn't put personal or secret stuff up there that somebody could hack. It's still easily hackable.
Sure. There's a certain amount of, try to protect your own stuff kind of thing that's going on. But still, the real issue is the people who feel the need to hack someone's personal information, whether it be credit card information or nudies.
Right.
It's just creepy, and they people ruin it for everybody else.
They do. And when the first round came about, my big concern was not just the photos, which were horrifying for everybody involved who had their stuff leaked out. Because those photos, or in the case of Kate Upton, they were her boyfriend's photos.
Was it her ex something, right?
Well, no, it's the one she was currently seeing.
Okay.
It was on his cloud, not hers. So we had all that, but when they went through his stuff, there were other girls.
Other girls, yeah.
So it's like, what? You don't know, and I'm not going to say he was doing anything wrong, but people start speculating, who are these other girls? Were they ex-girlfriends? Are they girls he's seeing now while seeing Kate? You don't know.
Of course.
That's their business.
Right.
My thought went to, after the photos, what if you uploaded your contacts to this thing?
Of course.
Right? So all these celebrities would have personal emails and phone numbers to agents, to studio heads, to executives, for everything. And if somebody just had their phone book that was stored up in the cloud, or their data that could get hacked, and then you got Steven Spielberg's personal cell phone number, doesn't matter if it was your fault or not, you'll never work again.
Oh, of course not.
And nobody thinks about that either.
No. Well, they assume that the service is secure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a poor assumption, but again, you can't blame people. You could say that it's maybe not the smartest thing to do, but if they're presented with what should be a secure service and they utilize it as a secure service and it gets hacked, it's still the hacker is the real problem, not the people uploading it.
What do we have here today? We're going to talk to Kevin Durand from The Strain in a few minutes. He's going to be calling in.
I'm excited.
That came out at a last minute.
Yeah, that was like, hey, you want to... Oh, okay.
I was like, yeah, we watched The Strain. Let's talk to him. I would love to. I can never pronounce the character's name.
Vasily Fett.
Vasily Fett.
And come on, who didn't love him as the Blob in X-Men Wolverine Origins?
This is true.
Or Lost, I guess, if you like that show.
So, unfortunately, we... look, I promoted this guy coming on the show, and I feel bad every time I talk to him because we don't give him the due that he deserves. I don't know why he keeps calling back to this show, but my friend Brian Shea from VideoGameWriters.com is on the phone. Brian, how are you?
Good. How are you, man?
Hey, man. I'm sure you've heard us talking about cumberbatching and fappenings, and now we got the guy from The Strain who's going to be calling in a few minutes, so I apologize that your time is going to be squashed a little bit here. But I had Brian call in today because there's a lot that's been going on in the world of gaming, video gaming, and I had some questions about some things, too. So Brian's here to answer those questions and give us some updates, especially for what's coming up for the holiday season.
Okay.
But first, let's go into the big hot topic right now of Destiny, Brian.
The love-hate relationship that people seem to have with that game?
Yeah, it's kind of weird because, there's this huge, highly anticipated shooter from the people who made Halo, and everybody was really, really excited for it. The alpha test was huge. The beta test was even bigger. And then it kind of came out, and people were like, oh, this is it? I think people were going into it expecting it to be more like Halo.
Yeah.
And the gameplay is a lot like Halo, but like the missions and the story are just very different from what I think the fans of Bungie were looking for.
Well, I think you have two problems. I think the expectation, which you kind of hit on, the expectations were just far too high, right? And whenever you have the expectations set that high, it's doomed to fail because it's just not going to hit people's expectations, or at least everybody's expectations. And then the major criticism that I've been hearing is that it's awesome to play. The cooperative play is great, right? It's a lot of fun, but the story is just not there. Or it's there in a really sort of kind of not part of the game sort of way with the cards or whatever right? There's some like sort of cards that you get that like give you gray matter on the game and what's going on.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because Bungie has like a pretty good story set out for the Halo franchise. They did Halo 1 through 3 and then ODST and Reach. But with Destiny, it's just you get certain accomplishments, and then you unlock Grimoire cards, I think they're called.
Yeah.
And then you have to go on their website and read up about what's going on in the story.
Yeah, who wants to do that?
Exactly. It's
like give it to me in the game.
I've never seen a game so reluctant to tell you like what's going on in the story.
Like it's some big hidden secret. Like even though you spent 8.5 hours playing the game already, we're still not ready to tell you where this is going.
Do you think
I've beaten the main storyline? I really have no idea why I was going from area to area killing all these things.
Now let me ask you a question about this game that I've seen people complain about online. Is that the multiplayer is more of the focus than playing it by yourself?
Oh yeah, I mean, you just have you started Borderlands yet?
No, I just got Borderlands and Borderlands 2 sent to me by my buddy Chad Dukes, so I'm going to start playing that soon.
Yeah.
I heard that's an amazing game.
Yeah, it's a really great franchise, but yeah, that's another one you need to have a friend or two to play with you through those missions, because it's just, for some reason, the mission structure just doesn't play well by yourself. I think it's just, it might just be a little bit too repetitive or something. I can't quite put my finger on why.
Right.
I think it's because it's a loot fest, so you're going from cave to cave, killing all the enemies, grabbing all the loot, getting new weapons. But it gets so repetitive when you're by yourself. And I think Destiny's kind of that same way, because with every single mission, it's the exact same thing. You say, all right, well, I need to go to this waypoint over here on the other side of the map, kill everything, and then go to the next waypoint and do the exact same thing.
It sounds like the game is just one big giant grinding fest for like MMO
really
players.
Yeah, it kind of is, because they tried to bring so many different elements, and I'm not going to bash the game. I've played it almost nonstop since it came out, but there are so many areas that it could have improved on, and yeah, it is a giant grind, because at its core, it's really an MMO,
right?
MMORPG. So, and it's a good one in that you don't have all the content out at launch, which I think a lot of people were wanting. It's pretty light on content when you're looking at what a budget this game had. This game had a $500 million budget.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I mean, it made it back on the very first day, though. So,
do you think they didn't have a lot of this stuff ready in time, and they just were, because everybody was waiting for this game? The beta test went so well that they were like, oh, we put it out, or is it just a matter of we're going to stretch this out as long as we possibly can?
Well, they're doing it on purpose. Bungie has come out and said, hey, we're going to have a 10-year plan for this game. So they're very optimistic that people are going to be still interested in playing this game 10 years down the road. Maybe not even this game. Maybe they'll release like a sequel to the game, and they'll have like the same like content stream. But they're going to have the first expansion, like the first major paid expansion, coming out in December for $20, I think it is.
Okay.
They just put up the pre-orders for that, which I still don't really get the purpose of pre-ordering digital content.
Are they planning a lot of like expanded universe type stuff too, like companion, like books and comic books, and like I know Borderlands did that, Halo did it, right, with some novels and stuff like that. Do you think that's all part of the plan too, and they just assume that people are going to be kind of they're going to be able to continue their interest in it through these other companion products?
Well, I think with the success that it's had, and with the main complaint being, hey, the story's really lackluster, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we saw more fleshing out in other mediums.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I think maybe what happened was I think they knew that the multiplayer was going to be maybe the strongest component of the game. And so in that, the story might have taken a little bit of a back seat. I think they thought maybe more people were going to be more interested in playing the multiplayer, where the story isn't necessarily as important, right?
Yeah, I mean, but the entire game itself is multiplayer. Like the story itself, you're supposed to be playing with friends. Like that's what the basis of the game is. And there is a competitive multiplayer portion of it that's very much like Halo's Team Deathmatch, and there's a playlist called Control where you go from like area to area and kill other players to try to gain control of a territory and things like that. But yeah, the main part of this game is focused on the multiplayer in general. So, I mean, I've watched cutscenes with friends while I'm playing, and we're all kind of just like, what are they even talking about? How did this even happen?
Jesus.
Brian, why is the story becoming, being put on the back burner as far as all this stuff? Why is there so much importance in multiplayer angles with these games? Like Titanfall came out earlier this year, and everyone was excited about it, but there was no single campaign to it. You couldn't play the game yourself. It had to be online playing with multiplayer. And people do like doing that, but sometimes you just want to, sit home and play the game yourself. And it seems to be going more in that direction of you need to be online always, or you need to be online playing with other people. You can't just play the story with yourself anymore.
There's probably a lot of reasons for this, but I would say one of the main reasons is the success of games like Halo and Call of Duty. I mean, those are two of the most popular franchises of all time.
Right, but you had the choice between playing the single campaign and the multiplayer. Now it seems to be going that way where you're not going to have that anymore.
Oh yeah, but with Halo was also popular for revolutionizing online play on consoles. I mean, if you remember, Halo 2 was the game that launched Xbox Live.
Right.
And, Halo 1 was, even though Xbox Live wasn't launched yet, it was still hugely popular for like LAN parties and people like bringing their Xboxes over and all playing together in one house. So I mean, it's always been, it really popularized online play on consoles, and Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was the one that really kind of was the tipping point for that. And ever since then, online shooters and online play has been kind of a target for a lot of publishers. And a lot of publishers, I haven't really heard of any like concrete evidence for this, but a lot of people say that publishers will push developers to putting multiplayer components in their games. And I've heard one that one had a lot of speculation about this was Mass Effect 3, because the entire Mass Effect series was so single-player focused, and then Mass Effect 3, which closed out the trilogy, was they had a big multiplayer component to it that was actually played into the storyline. So if you wanted to get like the best ending, it helps if you played multiplayer.
Yeah, I think it just makes sense. I mean, they get to sell you a companion product, right, in the online service in the case of Xbox Live, right? Mm-hmm. And then not only that, but I think they just recognize that people aren't playing by themselves, these games by themselves anymore. It's just a different, the games have just taken that huge shift. And why not? Why not push multiplayer? I mean, it always has its problems when games launch and the multiplayer doesn't work right. But I just think in the next couple of years, every game is going to have a multiplayer component to it. No matter what, it's just going to be some sort of multiplayer component, and it'll just be a way to continue to keep interest in the product. It'll make the products last longer. It'll sell the companion products, and everybody makes more money, except for the people paying, of course.
Yeah, and that's another great point that you make with the lifespan of the product. Because, I mean, once you finish the single-player campaign, you can either wait for expansions to be released by the developer or move on to another game. So if there's a multiplayer component, you can kind of sink as many hours into the game as it holds your attention for.
Right.
Brian, I do apologize. We're going to have to cut this short because we have Kevin Durand calling in from the Strain in just a minute here. Last question, and we'll have you back on to talk holiday stuff. I do apologize. VideoGameWriters.com, at Brian P. Shea on Twitter, right?
Yep.
Okay, last question with Destiny. What were you telling me about the advertising nonsense that was going on with this, that Xbox couldn't advertise this game at all?
Yeah, well, Sony kind of struck this huge exclusive deal, which is, it's kind of interesting because, Bungie, being the creators of Halo, had a pre-existing relationship with Microsoft. Then they branched away to making third-party titles, but then they struck this huge exclusive deal with Sony where a lot of the expansions are going to be coming to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3 first, and then it kind of came out that Microsoft can't advertise Destiny. It started off with kind of whispers because we noticed that we being the gaming community started noticing that Microsoft's not really mentioning Destiny, which is this huge release, in any of its ads. And then about a week before launch, Microsoft released this this website. I think it was destinythefragrance.com or something like that. And it was this huge ad just for Destiny the Fragrance. And it had the Destiny logo on a cologne bottle. And it pretty much said, we don't have the rights to advertise this game, but we're going to advertise this fragrance called Destiny the Fragrance. But hey, there's also this game called Destiny, and it looks pretty cool. You should probably buy it.
It's amazing. You can have the license to sell the game on your platform, but you do not have permission to advertise that you're selling this game on your platform. Is this the first time this has ever been done?
It's the first time that a publisher has really come out and called them out on it. So I don't know if it's been done before, but this is definitely the highest profile one that I can remember.
I just think it's a little bit weird because I kind of feel like Microsoft almost wins a little bit in this regard because they didn't have to pay the huge advertising bucks, but everybody I know that's been talking about Destiny hasn't been talking about it for one platform or the other. They've been talking about it for whatever platform they own. So Microsoft is benefiting from all the publicity that the game is getting, that Sony is sinking into it, and they're still moving product. I mean, maybe not quite as much as Sony, but I think PS4 has been outselling Xbox One in general anyway. So
yeah, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. The projections, not the projections, the list that came out for the games going into 2015 doesn't seem to be helping Xbox in the next year.
Yeah, it's. I mean, early 2015 in particular has some really good exclusives for PlayStation 4. The Order 1886, Bloodborne, things like that.
Okay.
Really exciting lineup for Sony people.
I need to get a PS4 still.
I need to get anything. I'm still on 360. I have games I haven't even opened yet. Brian, we'll have to do that again another time, too. What's been going on with my dry spell with video games? And try to figure that out. VideoGameWriters.com is the website. Brian P. Shea on Twitter. Brian, thank you so much, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Take care,
Thank
man.
you, Brian.
All right. Sorry about that. We're rushed for time. This was a guest that we weren't expecting. We had hopes that we were going to get something, and then all of a sudden at the last minute, oh, guess what? He's available. Do you want to talk to him? Oh, yeah, let's take him here. So we're going to talk to Strain, if you haven't seen it. Sunday nights, 10 o'clock on FX. You should definitely watch it. Let's talk a little bit Strain here. Kevin Durand from The Strain is here. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing terrific. Yourself?
We're doing fine. Saturday night, we have no lives. We're doing a radio show. I imagine a man of your status and of interest would be out in the town. Are you in the Los Angeles area right now?
I'm in the Los Angeles area. I'm hanging out with a couple of cool dogs. That's how busy I am. I'm hanging out with my homies.
So you're staying at home is what you're doing.
That's right. My 2 German Shepherd rescues. We're hanging out. We're enjoying the day. And that's about as crazy and wild my Hollywood life is.
Kevin Durand, he plays. I can never get this right. Is it Vasily Fett, right?
Vasily Fett.
Vasily Fett on The Strain, which is Saturdays 10 p.m. on FX, and you sound completely different from the badass that your character is.
Yeah, no. Every time I watch that show, I'm like, man, I wish I was that guy. Maybe when I grow up, I could be that guy.
You play a rat exterminator on the show who winds up becoming a vampire killer.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read the what would you call them, Matt? Graphic novels?
No, they were.
Are they comics?
No, they were novels. It was Guillermo del Toro and I think Chuck Hogan, right? Did a series. It was 3 books, I think.
That's right. Actually, it's funny. I just started rereading the Fall, which is the second book in the series, just to kind of get me back on track, so that we can do things right again, season 2. You know.
Well, we're 10 episodes into season 1. It's a 13-episode season for now. How do you feel the story and the direction of everything has been going compared to the actual novels?
You know, I really love the novels, but there's something about seeing the way that they're executing the television show. It's really cool. It's really visceral. I think it's really masterfully done. You know, I'm really grateful to be part of the team, and I was a fan of the book, so it's cool to get to see it come to fruition right in front of my eyes. You know, it's really cool.
And I'm sure working with Guillermo del Toro has got to be pretty awesome. How did that work out for you? Getting did he select you? Did you go out for the part, or?
I got a call from my agent saying that Guillermo del Toro and Carlton Cuse wanted to sit down with me and talk to me about The Strain. So I had 3 days. I read the first book, went and met them. Obviously, I mean, being in that room, I was very, very interested in hearing what they had to say. And yeah, they told me they wanted me to be Vasily, who was my favorite character. So I thought that's really cool. Usually when they call me in, I have to play like this really terrible, dark character most of the time. Usually a really bad guy, and I get to be this cool, stoic, heroic Vasily Fett on this show. It's pretty cool.
Well, with Carlton Cuse being one of the guys that had called you in, and I guess you had worked with him on Lost, that's a pretty dark, bad character that you played over there. So I can understand your trepidation.
That's subject to interpretation. I thought Martin Keamy was he was a poet. He was some people just kind of see him as being, so he killed a bunch of people. He was just doing his job.
That's it. Taking orders. That's all.
I mean, you were working for Charles Widmore. What more do you expect? You don't expect something nice to happen.
Fair enough.
That's it. Well, actually, it's funny on that show because people are always telling me that he's such a bad guy, and I was like, well, I'm working for this guy who basically said if I don't kill all these people on the island by a certain amount of time, that he is going to go after my family. So he was checking his watch a lot, kind of going, okay. I have another 25 people to go in the next, it's like a short period of time to exterminate a lot of people. And now Carlton's got me exterminating other types of beings. So it's pretty fantastic to get to work with Carlton again. He's just putting such great stuff out there in the world, great television out there, and it's nice to be on the team.
Staying with Lost for one moment here. Now, everybody has their own opinion with the way the finale took place and how the series ended. Were you a fan of the show before joining the cast? Did you know all the storylines, or did you have to kind of play catch-up when you got the part?
You know what? Because of the nature of the character, I had watched the first season, and then I thought, I better catch up. And then the more that I found out about Keamy, I was like, the better for me to stay ignorant of who these people are. And, because to Martin Keamy, they were just mounds of meat that he had disposed of. So it was a little easier to do that.
So once your role was done on that show and you didn't have to worry about it anymore, what did you think of that finale?
It's really interesting. I'm right now I'm full-fledged into Dexter, and everyone's telling me.
Well, sir, you're not going to like that finale either.
I know people are telling me that, and I had no issue with the ending. I mean, I think the way that they kind of traveled along with that narrative, there was a lot of things were cryptic and a lot of things were left to kind of try to figure out for yourself. So I kind of felt like they left on the same note, and that's kind of what compelled us to watch every week,
Yeah, but people just don't like that. People need, at least in America, they need to have it wrapped up. You can't leave it open-ended. I mean, look at how pissed people were with the Seinfeld finale, and that gave you an ending. They just didn't like it. They hated Sopranos because it didn't give you anything. Lost was
with that one too. Yeah,
Lost was the same thing, and then Dexter gave you an ending that nobody liked. So
I know. How do you make anyone happy?
You don't.
Yeah, you just gotta. It's like anything in life, You just gotta put it out there and hope for the best, and you're just not gonna make everybody happy ever.
Well, hopefully the Strain just got picked up for the second season.
That's right.
Hopefully you're a part of that. Is there anything you can tell us about that?
It's just gonna be awesome.
Okay.
That's about it. I mean, It just basically continues off from where we leave it at the end of the first season, which I can't tell you yet because you still have 3 episodes to go.
Yeah.
But the madness ensues and deepens, and the anarchy heightens, and it's going to be a hell of a ride.
Now, I've never read the novels, so seeing this show, I was excited about it. I've heard of them. I never read them. And watching it, I've been enjoying it because it's a nice take on the whole vampire culture where it's still a virus in the blood, but it's not biting people on the necks and like the whole Dracula mythos. It's just it's a bacteria and these worms that are turning people into, I guess, what you call vampires for the sake of that they're sucking the life force out of people without biting them on the. They shoot something out of their mouth, almost alien-like. It's something different here. And
the description is poetic, I must say.
It is. And again, I didn't read the books, but I just watched the show. And so people who did read the books, I've been seeing some people saying that they're not enjoying it right now. Is it maybe a matter of that it's moving too slow? I wouldn't know because I didn't read the books, but I've been enjoying it. But people who've read the books have saying it's going a little off course or it's taking too long to deal with the master and I guess whatever happens at the end of season 1.
Well, the thing that's kind of interesting about people being upset that it's not staying 100% faithful to the books is that Guillermo went out and pitched this before he wrote the books. And I believe Fox was interested, but they told him that they wanted him to turn it into a comedy. And then that's when he kind of said, okay, well, forget it.
A comedy? How does that work?
Yeah, I know, I don't know. So he kind of just kind of shook his head and went off, teamed up with Chuck Hogan, and they wrote the book specifically with the purpose of turning it into a cable series and fleshing it out. So the book really kind of serves as a skeleton. And a good television series is often it's like a constantly changing, evolving kind of entity. It's whatever seems to be working, like characters, relationships, or whatever. They tend to focus on things that are really working. So that's why often when television shows or films stray from the books, it's just because they're fleshing it out. You got a skeleton, now we're putting on the meat. So I'm saddened that some people are like, yeah, but he doesn't do this in the book and blah blah blah. But the book was written so that we could do this.
Yeah, see, I never got that because a lot of the times these shows and miniseries and whatnot come out and they're based on books, and I have not read those books. Look, I'm not a reader.
Right.
I should have, but I haven't. And you see online, like after the first episode or during the first episode on Twitter and stuff like that, where they're saying, this is different from the book. That character is not the one that was in the book. And sometimes you just can't do the book exactly because of television, be it limitations or, like you said, the evolution of the story and going into a different direction and maybe making it better. A lot of people just say, I don't like this because it's not exactly the book. And I don't think that's a fair assumption.
Well, I mean, it's a free world. Think what you want to think. I mean, we're really happy with what's transpiring, what's happening, and a lot of people seem to be really happy with it. And for those who aren't, I'm sorry.
Let me tell you. Well, let me tell you about a show that is sticking by the book, and no one seems to be liking anymore. The Leftovers.
See, I told
on
you.
HBO.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I told you not to watch the show.
I never read the book. I was watching the show, and I was enjoying it. And a lot of people who read the book, actually, who did enjoy the book, are not liking the show either. It's sad. I thought I had high hopes for it, and I'm not trying to promote another show while promoting this show. But I'm just pointing out the fact that not everything that's in the book is better than what was on television.
And we just said that not everybody is happy with anything.
Right.
So there's always going to be haters, right?
Yeah, and that's fine. That's I always think that really good art inspires reaction.
Sure.
Right.
And I honestly, a lot of the time, it kind of doesn't matter what the reaction is as long as there's reaction. And so. That's all right. They might say, well, this isn't like the book, but, hopefully they're still tuning in and maybe kind of opening up to the possibilities of where this narrative is actually traveling. And, I myself, I love the books. I've I read them before shooting the first season, and now I'm reading them again before the second season, and I really dig them. I think they're great, but I'm excited that it's not verbatim because I don't know what I'm getting in the next script, and that's kind of exciting, you know? And yeah, it's a lot more fun this way.
Well, I don't know anybody could not like the books, and if you don't like the books and you're not liking the TV show, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, the TV show has been great. How do you not like the work that Kevin has been doing on The Strain here, Sundays, 10 p.m. on FX? And if they don't like you for that work, they got to like you for Lost. And if they don't like you for Lost, Kevin will always love you as the Blob in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah, it's been a great trip so far. Playing a lot of different dudes, enjoying my time, you know, kicking it with my dogs in California. It's all good.
Well, you have one of the more fascinating characters on that show that helps move things along. As long as they don't kill you off at the end of this season, I would love to talk to you for the start of season 2.
Definitely.
Ooh, he may have said something. Kevin Durand on Twitter is One Mighty Tree. He's the star of The Strain, Sundays, 10 p.m. on FX. Kevin, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate it.
I'd have a good one.
Erik Nagel. You know, E-Rock? Well, he'll be right back.
Ready whenever you are.
It's over. I just said what I wanted to say.
Okay, and that's
Freedom
it. Thank you very much, Terry
tall,
Gilliam. Terry Gilliam is here, and I don't know how to introduce you because I think everybody knows who you are and knows your work. But for those who do not, we'll get the obvious out of the way, Monty Python. Right. But he's had a series of films, one that is pretty near and dear to my childhood, Time Bandit. But Brazil, Jabberwocky, Baron Munchausen, I can never get that name right. Munchausen. 12 Monkeys, and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is probably the most, I would say, probably the most mainstream film as far as acceptance, you don't think?
Fishing and Time Bandits were the big ones.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? You're right, because Time Bandits got a Simpsons parody done about it. So that has to put it right there in the front of pop culture with the couch gag and the wall moving and what have you. But you're here promoting your brand new movie, The Zero Theorem. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
I just watched the movie, and one of the things I liked over the progression of your films is that you get more and more vivid with colors and then making whatever is not really supposed to stand out as drab and as useless as possible in your scenes. Like they're just in the back, it's grainy, it's gritty, and then somebody comes in and is electric red and a bright green, and so you can't really focus on the center. You're constantly moving back, forth with your vision between what's in front of you and what's behind it.
Yeah, I'm trying to make the audience work a little bit.
Oh, you do, especially in this movie, in the, I'll just say, the party scene. You're constantly, you can't focus. You're trying to see everything and grab everything as you're moving along, and you do these unique angles, and you can't focus. You got to, if you don't have the movie when it comes out on DVD or on demand, whatever, you have to go back just so you can see what you missed. There's so much going on.
This is my clever plan. You have to buy the DVD and watch it 10, 20 times.
You just irritate everyone in the theater. It's like, 4 things just happened. They might tie into the story. I don't know what that guy was doing because I was watching this girl over here.
Exactly. No, because, I mean, we live in a time where people have the ability to watch a film again and again and again.
Yeah.
And so hopefully there's enough to lure them in on one viewing that they might watch it more and more. I find this film in particular has, the people who've watched it more than once, 2 or 3 times, get a very different experience from their initial experience. There are a lot of people don't even like it at the beginning, but just out of curiosity because they've liked what I've done in the past, they'll give me a bit of slack and watch it a second time and then discover there's a very different movie there.
I have to say, I think it's shot, I'll say, brilliantly sadistic in a time when everybody is so ADHD and can't focus on more than one thing at a time, or that you're doing a million things, and people are trying not to see a million things, trying to focus, but they can't, and you're just taking it away from them, saying, no, you're just going to see everything I'm putting out all at once. If you got it, you got it. If you didn't, there's always next time.
I thought people were training to multitask more and more.
You think so, like, because people be on their phones and they're listening to a podcast and they're driving and they're doing all this stuff, but when they're watching something, they can't do that. A lot of people zoom in and, like, you can't be bothered by everything else if you're watching something.
And I think that's part of the thing with films. Both films are very simplistic in the sense they guide the audience through very, very calmly, take their hand and say, now look at this. Now, over here, pay attention. Here's another one coming. And I just assume people can be smarter if they work at it. So.
When I was saying about the vivid color and then the drab backgrounds, is that how you see things when you're imagining your work, or is it just because the technology allows you to do it as each film comes about?
No, Zero Theorem, what was interesting is that I knew when we started it, there would be people who would compare it to Brazil because there are comparisons, there's connections. And Brazil was a dark, drab world with a man who dreamed beautiful dreams within it, hopefully. But I thought, now, this isn't a dystopia, this is a utopia. The outside world is colorful and bright and bouncy, and ads are everywhere. Everything is lots of color, except for the main character, Christoph Waltz, who is the black hole of the movie in a sense. He's the depressing character, the depressed character. And it's his, in a sense, reaction to this visual overkill that the world is. And that's kind of what I feel like, having arrived now in New York, and we've just, on our way here, drove past Times Square.
Right.
Now, that's really wild. Our film is very calm in comparison.
Well, when he goes out into the street, it's like Times Square, it's like Tokyo, where it's overstimulation to the point that you no longer focus on it. It's like in New York, people don't look up.
Yeah.
So you miss the fact that there's, all this artwork or signs up higher up on buildings, but they're just used to, there's just too much going on. They're watching as they go down the street or on their phone, and they never look up and never see anything anymore.
It's probably the only way you can survive in this city, isn't it?
Right.
What else you do? So everybody's just focused, and kind of like our main character, who's just focused on his need to get a phone call that's going to give meaning to his life.
Right.
And people are doing that. They're not actually looking at the world anymore. And it's one of the things that worries me, because we have all the world now on our computer screen. If we want to, everything you could ever dream of is there. Too much is there. And what does it mean for us? How much of it is important to me or you, and how much is just noise? And it was partly what I was trying to do in the film, is to create this frenzy of visuals. And the real story is about one man trying to either escape from the noise or slowly bring back his humanity as it arrives in the form of different people into his little chapel.
So is it like you're saying where Cohen, right? Is that how you would say it?
Yeah.
Christoph Waltz character, being drab, the world is colorful, all this stuff's going on, and he's looking for a paradise, a Shangri-La heaven, if you will. And all this is there, but he's not realize. Is it that he doesn't realize all this is around him, or is he just blatantly tuning it out, thinking there's something better?
I think what you just said is that he's tuned it out because it's too much to deal with, and he just assumes there is a greater, deeper meaning than all of that noise.
All right.
There may not be.
You have a fascination too, which is interesting, because I saw. I guess this is where the Brazil comparison comes into, about the company he works for is like. I guess at this time in the movie, it's the end-all, be-all of how society functions. They're the not even the big brother. They're just the police state, if you will. They're always watching you. They're controlling everything you do. There's one scene, without spoiling anything, where they went to say something that they put a folder up over a camera, and it's like, you can't say that. They always know what's going on. So everyone's always in this kind of panic state, very tense. And in Brazil, you had that as well, where one guy did something against the government, and now he became the enemy of the state there. Brazil, I think, was ahead of its time in the sense that right when you came out was when everyone started to think about that with the Cold War and everything. And it still continues, at least with some kind of subtle theme, up until this movie with your work. Do you see the world like that it's all being controlled by one kind of government?
No, I don't actually, because I think what happened, Brazil, brought America Homeland Security so you can feel secure now.
Yeah.
But this isn't about government. It's about corporations. It's about corporations really run the world, not governments. Governments are sort of the puppet show that we watch. The real power is in corporations, and corporate thinking is one of the things that we all seem to be having to deal with, where you are being watched in places like the BBC and so many of the big corporations. It's called compliance. You're probably at Sirius in the station here. You don't have that problem, but big corporations are always worried about their image to the outside world. So everybody is encouraged to just say as little as possible, don't get involved, and let the corporation go. And so people tend to talk in limited terms. People don't say what they really mean, and that's totally corporate thinking. And that's why Mancom is basically a corporation. It's called Corporation Sans Frontières, it's part of, and it's about the collecting of information, which is what our friends Google and everybody do. Is Google ahead of the NSA as far as collecting information? I don't know. And which will use it for the greater good of society? I'm not sure.
Matt Damon is in the movie for just a tiny bit, and I guess his character is just called Management. And I don't know if he runs the company or if he's just Cohen's boss for that level of the company that he's working for.
It's his company.
It is his company.
He's the man. So is he Steve Jobs? Is he? I don't know who the guys are.
It's an amazing portrayal of a Steve Jobs kind of thing. There's a lot of fear based around this guy because of the company, but when he gets to sit in the same room with management, there's sort of a weird humanity to him where he's reading the book and he just seems like he's a normal guy, but everyone's afraid of what this guy built.
It is, but that's the way corporations, businesses work. CEOs are just like that. People are terrified of them. They're most charming guys. They're not about world domination. They're just about making the company powerful, making money. They're reasonable men, and that's what Matt is, a very reasonable man. He's not like head of a totalitarian state in any way.
You've had also good fortune, too, where you're one of those directors that has I'll say a little camp in your pocket there, that you get to work with the same actors time and time again, Matt Damon being one of them. I love The Brothers Grimm. I went to see it in the theater. I don't think it got its due. But then you had a couple of films with Jeff Bridges, a couple of films with Heath Ledger, and the most notably the last film that he ever did. Yeah. Right, and then you were in last time for promoting that movie there. These relationships that you have, and some of these guys have become major, major stars that will come back and do your work. Is it because of you and your personal relationship? Is it they love the indie work and the indie scene, that there's not that much of it anymore without it being bought up by a company?
I have the negatives of the photographs. That's why they come back. No, I mean, it's the people I work with that I really enjoy working with. It seems to be mutual. And that's the thing. And the great thing about the bigger they become as stars, they have enough money, they can afford to just come and play for basically next to nothing.
Right.
And that's how, in fact, Zero Theorem was made. I mean, Matt, I emailed him and said, I got a script, a small part. And he says, and I says, I'll send you the script. He says, don't bother. I'm in. Because it's only going to take 4 or 5 days of his life.
Right.
He gets to come gets to play something that's very different from whatever he's played, and that's what actors want. They want the ability to show their range. I mean, look at Tilda Swinton in this one.
Yeah.
I mean, she's extraordinary. She gets to rap. She gets to be bald. She gets to do many. Actually, no, she gets bald head. That's all. And that's what's nice. And we have a good time working together because I give them space. They always surprise me. And that kind of mutual support is just something that people enjoy being part of.
Is there anybody that you haven't worked with yet that you wanted to? Or like schedules just never got together?
Michael Fassbender and I keep talking about something or other.
Yeah.
We keep missing each other. I think Fassbender is an extraordinary actor. There's so many really good actors. And what intrigues me is to take actors that have gotten caught in sort of a rut doing the same thing, because that's why they're successful, and pulling them out and showing another side of them. I don't know. I don't think about it in the sense that, there's somebody I must work with. It depends on what the script is we're playing with, and is this person would he be interested in playing that part? And would it be a surprise if he played a part like that? I think like that normally.
The movie comes out. Is it limited release just for this weekend? And does it roll out bigger, or how's that working?
We start and then see what happens. Yeah. You've got to tread carefully out there.
Yeah.
There's big movies waiting to push you out of existence every week now.
Yeah, you don't want to go up against the Avengers, or
no,
something like that.
Well, we did that with Fear and Loathing. We went up against Godzilla. I thought, counter-programming. And it was a disaster. It was a complete disaster. So we avoid that now.
With everything you've done, and some movies have been very successful, some have become cult classics. Do you ever think about maybe expanding back into television from where you came from? Because a lot of directors have seen some success with this. J.J. Abrams, Judd Apatow, Guillermo del Toro with The Strain right now on FX. It's a whole new age for television. It's not being looked at as, well, it's not movies anymore. Now people are looking, it's like, I want to do television. Do you think this might be a venture for you in the future, that some kind of miniseries or new drama or something?
Well, it's one of the things that I'm doing while I'm here in New York is meeting with Richard LaGravenese, who wrote Fisher King. We have a script we wrote right after Fisher King that has never been made into a film, and we're talking about, can we expand it and make an 8-part miniseries out of what would have been a 2.5-hour film. We'll see what happens. No, because television is where the interesting work is being done right now.
Right, yeah. It seems like you have all the creative freedom in the world now with television.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I've avoided it because I do love the big screen. I like, putting so much detail up there, which you can't really do on the small screen. And yet, most people end up seeing my films on DVD. That's the reality of it now. So why am I fighting it? Let's just go for the smaller screen and see what happens.
I try to avoid this, and because I know you get this all the time, but for myself, I have to ask you one Monty Python question, if that's cool.
Yeah. Fine.
You just did the reunion over in at the O2 in England there back in July. I wasn't able to go. Will it be released in some form? And also, can you just tell me your experience of going back and doing that again?
Yeah, well, you will be able to see it because it is going to be coming out on DVD. I've actually seen the show on DVD.
Oh, great.
It's pretty good. The experience was quite extraordinary because I think none of us expected it to be, that successful. I mean, people, I don't think, believe it, but it's true that when we started, we said we'd do one show, and we penciled in a couple extra days just in case we sold out the first show, and it sold out in 47 seconds, the first one. So we then put on more, and it's still, then those sold out like that. So we ended up doing 10 shows, and it was packed. I mean, it was huge, and the audience loved it, and in the end, we really had a great time. It was like 30 years had disappeared. We were young again for a brief moment, doing the same stuff, having fun doing it, and getting away with murder, frankly. It was great. So I think the DVD, I think it comes out in November of the full show. That will be a chance for people to see it, because it's not quite the same experience, because being in that huge, vast auditorium, which is like 16,000 people there, was cozy. And you don't quite get the cozy feeling when you're sitting at home. Cozy with 16,000 people around you.
It's titled Live, mostly in parentheses, and it's dubbed as The Last Reunion. Is that like until the next reunion? Because that's how Monty Python always worded everything. It's never over till it's over, but then it's not over.
I don't know. I don't think so. None of us at the moment are thinking, literally, nobody is thinking of doing any more, because we're all trying to get back into the lives we were leading before. It was a strange anomaly because, and I had dinner with Mike and John a couple of weeks ago, and we were all almost saying the same thing. It was extraordinary, but it's like it never happened because it was so extraordinary and so unlike what our lives are at the moment. You just sort of switch off that part. It happened, gone. Yeah, it's very weird.
It's always back there in the corner of your mind.
It's a dangerous thing, as Mike Palin said. God, this must be what a dictator feels like when you're in front of that crowd.
Terry Gilliam, thank you so much. The movie is The Zero Theorem. It's out this weekend in select releases. It's in your area. Please go and see it. It's an amazing piece of work. Terry, thank you so much, man. As somebody who grew up on your work, Monty Python, Time Bandits, and other things, it's just a huge honor for me to talk to you, and I really appreciate you taking the time out.
Thanks, and I can tell the world he's wearing the King Arthur T-shirt.
It's actually
Holy Grail.
It's a Banksy Holy Grail.
Banksy stole us. God.
Yeah.
He's rich now. We can sue him.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Go for it. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I didn't know Banksy had done one. That's good.
And that's all the time we have. Follow Erik on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @eRockRadio. The show should be back next week.